Hello Malaysia, and welcome to another edition of Medical Today. I'm Gerard Ratnam. Of course, today we've got some very interesting topics for you. I will be talking about child developmental issues. We'll also be delving into asthma and COPD. But before we get into all that, let's talk about cosmetics. Now, that's a big topic in Malaysia. Ensuring its safety and quality before use is something we always need to be vigilant about. Now, joining me in the studio once again is Vanessa Daniel, the Deputy General Manager for Clinical Affairs / Pharmacologist, to show us the way to ensuring we make the right decisions with regards to products. And she's joining us all the way here from Pharmaniaga. Vanessa, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us once again. You've been on the show before talking about antibiotics. This time around you're going to be talking about a little something called cosmetics, very important to women. But before we get into that, let's take a look at this video.
Saya tak check sebab saya bila beli barang kosmetik tu, contohnya beli eyeshadow, I akan tengok colour. Lipstick pun I akan tengok colour. Bila barang-barang macam skincare, I akan tengok dia punya texture sesuai tak dengan warna kulit I. So dari segi undang-undang tu tak tengok kot. Mungkin I just look at the expired date.
Kalau macam saya beli barang kosmetik tu, basically saya menggunakan barang-barang daripada yang dah disahkan oleh KKMM.
Saya tak tengok sangat dari segi undang-undang, but I will always survey through the internet. So I will definitely focus on the brands.
Okay, macam saya selalu kalau saya beli barang makeup, saya jarang sekali lah tengok orang kata apa dia punya dari segi undang-undang ke ataupun apa semua, sebab satunya saya memang tak ada masalah kulit.
Bagi saya mesti akan cek bahan-bahan kosmetik tersebut daripada segi undang-undang, sebab sekarang ni banyak sangat bahan-bahan tiruan yang boleh merosakkan kulit wajah.
Well, there's some people or just the general public weighing in on what cosmetics are to them or is to them with regards to them knowing about the technicalities. Now, to get into this conversation, Vanessa, you just saw what they had to say. Yeah. Before we delve deeper, maybe you can walk us through what it means by fake cosmetics. What do we mean when we say cosmetics are fake?
Okay. So first and foremost, what's cosmetics? Cosmetic would be any product that is meant to beautify you, to perfume you, to clean you.
They've been trying for years and nothing's been happening to my face. But as you say,
time to change brands.
Time to change brands.
Yeah. So anything that beautifies you externally would be a cosmetic product. What is a fake cosmetic product would be something that is fraudulently or labeled with the intent of misleading the consumer. Okay, mostly with respect to legitimate brands. Okay, so cosmetic products like these fake ones, okay, can be rather dangerous because they contain a lot of substances that are not allowed.
What kind of substances are we talking about?
Good question. So there are a whole list of substances that are not allowed. You can go to WHO, FDA, all these regulatory agencies, they have a whole list of substances that are not allowed. I shouldn't list them all here. I don't think we'll have enough time. But maybe I can come up with two very common substances. First one being mercury.
Right.
Okay. So mercury is commonly used to whiten your skin. It's very if you look at a lot of substances that have mercury, the aim is to lighten the skin to make you look fairer.
Right.
Okay. But how dangerous is mercury? I'm sure you know. mercury can cause, one of the major problems is kidney damage. Okay, so we want to think about cosmetic products containing substances like mercury.
So when you talk about mercury and say lead,
that's another one.
They say a lot of it is found in things like antiperspirants also. Is that dangerous too?
Yeah, it can be. So you want to make sure that you check the ingredients of any cosmetic product that you purchase. You want to make sure that products, heavy metals like this, are definitely not in there.
Right.
So you would probably ask me, you know, you're a lay person, you won't know what are these substances that are allowed, not allowed. Best thing is to go online, check.
So you go online, you go to the Ministry of Health, go online to the Ministry of Health, and you'll be able to get all the information you need about this. But having said that, how does it make, if it's illegal, how does it make its way into the system?
Okay. So there are many ways because, okay, cosmetics are not as highly regulated as medicines.
Right.
Okay. So medicinal products would have to be registered. There are certain processes, certain clinical trials, preclinical trials, and certain tests that they would have to go through before they get registered in Malaysia.
Right.
And other countries as well. Not so for cosmetics. So for cosmetics, it's a simple thing called a notification. So they don't have a whole stringent list of requirements, okay? But it does not mean that they're not controlled, okay? So there is something called a notification that seller will have to provide. He has to provide a certain amount of information to the Ministry of Health. And once Ministry of Health is happy with the information that he is given, basically to prove that the product is safe, then they will provide a notification.
Right. We've got some rapid fire questions for you, so we'll just very quickly move into it. Now, you know, for women who can't afford the original, the good stuff, you know, they go for normal brands, or women and men who are going out there looking for stuff. Now, what advice would you give them with regards to looking out for stuff that's not, that shouldn't be in there? You know, what can you look out for? What do you need to know, look at to know that this is something which is recommended or something that's buyable?
Okay, so I wouldn't say that you would need to spend a whole lot of money in order to get safe cosmetics.
Right.
Okay, I think you can go to your regular retail pharmacies. You will see ranges of cosmetics, proper ones, that have affordable prices.
Right.
Okay. What I wouldn't do is go to shops like Pasar Malams, and you will see cosmetics, blushes, mascaras, all available there. Sometimes as low as 8 ringgit, 5 ringgit. No, these kind of cosmetics I would be very skeptical to use or to purchase.
So if you're going to get it from a dealer who actually, get it from a pharmacist or chemist.
Yes,
these are regulated,
yes.
properly regulated. Now, having said that too, if we find that we're being duped, what can we do? If we find that we're not too sure of our products, or something flares up, you know, you wear it today, and tomorrow instead of looking fairer, you look 10 shades darker. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
But what do you do?
Okay, I would do, the first thing is to stop using that product, first and foremost. I think that would be the most logical thing to do. Stop using the product. For those of you who might experience side effects, especially the ones that affect your health, see a doctor. You have to see a doctor to get your situation fixed. The next thing I would do is report the product to the Ministry of Health. So in the Ministry of Health, the body that takes care of cosmetic products or regulates cosmetic products would be NPRA, the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency. They have a website.
Right.
And in that website, there is a section called Contact Us, Hubungi Kami in Bahasa. And there, if you click there, they would have a form that you could fill up your details and your complaints. And they will look into your complaint.
Right. I do understand that you have something here for us, and this is about Pharmaniaga's role in ensuring consumer use safe for cosmetic products. So you're going to tell us, you're going to walk us through some tips, just so we go home having some information in our pocket as to what we can do when we buy these products. Yeah.
And this is an information that anybody can practice. Okay, so the first thing is what we spoke just now. You want to purchase only cosmetics that are legitimate, or rather in this case non-fake ones. Okay, it's very easy for you to pick out cosmetics that are fake. You would be able to see that their packaging is a little bit off. They would have spelling errors in the labels. Easy to pick out. Okay, so stay away from cosmetics like that. Secondly would be awareness, to educate yourself on what are proper cosmetics. Okay, and there are tons of articles online that will teach you what is proper cosmetics, what is fake cosmetics, what kind of ingredients in cosmetics you should avoid.
Then the next one is to check the product's notification number.
Okay, some products do. So in Malaysia, it's not compulsory for cosmetic products to have notification numbers. If they do, great. Okay, but if they don't, you can always call up the ministry, or you can always find out. Okay.
And after that?
So the next one would be make it a habit to browse through the ministry's website, especially NPRA's website, to find out for information.
Another acronym for you, NPRA.
NPRA, yes. And they would have a whole list, like I said just now, of substances that are banned, products that are banned. So you want to educate yourself on that.
So there's also other tips like always purchase from registered premises. Would you like to weigh in on that a little bit before we move into the last tip?
These are premises that are available in around us.
Okay,
and
your registered chemists, your pharmacists, like pharmacies, like you usually go to get your medicine. You can get your makeup there too. What about makeup shops, very quickly?
There are well-established ones. I would go to them. Okay, again, you would need to be really careful. Registered ones in proper shops, they are okay. Like I mentioned just now, makeup shops, little kiosks in pasar malams, I would avoid them.
Stay away from
Stay away from them, I would avoid
with
those.
that, Vanessa, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for joining us. If you do have a complaint, don't forget, write into the NPRA complaint forms, can be downloaded at www.npra.gov.my. We'd like to thank Vanessa Daniels from Pharmaniaga for taking time off a busy schedule for joining us. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Stay with us right here on Medical Day. We'll come back with more shortly. Listen to views of industry captains. Analyze and examine trends and projections. Gain market insights from subject matter experts. Biz Talk every Friday only on BNC.
Do you know what really happens to your mobile e-waste? Throwing them into the dustbin will only result in choking the landfills. Did you know that over 42 million mobile e-waste are not properly disposed of? And this amount will continue to grow. This will potentially cause toxic chemicals to seep into the ground. The environment will slowly be polluted, thus creating a multitude of health problems to us humans. Did you know that 90% of the materials used to make mobile phones and their accessories can be recovered and recycled? These can be reused to make anything and everything, including electrical goods. Well, the good news is MCMC has initiated a mobile e-waste campaign. MCMC, along with telecommunications companies, have set up collection areas for the public to safely dispose their mobile e-waste at participating outlets. With 72 outlets nationwide, including TM, U-Mobile, Maxis, DG, Celcom and Altel, you can now dispose your e-waste easily and at your convenience. Join us to get 1 million recycled mobile e-waste for this campaign. Make a difference for a better world, better environment and better future. For more information, log on to mobileewaste.mcmc.gov.my. This initiative is brought to you by the Malaysian communications industry together with MCMC.
Hello Malaysia and welcome back to Medical Today. I'm Gerard Ratnam. As promised, we're going to delve into child developmental issues in this segment. And to join me in the studio is Dr. Rajani Sarvanandan from Ramsay, Sime, Darby Healthcare to take us through child development milestones. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Well, there's a lot for us to understand with regards to child developmental issues, and as technology moves forward, as we get more knowledgeable, we learn more. Now, what do we know about child developmental issues?
Well, when we talk about child developmental issues, it's often we're referring to children who may not be following the exact trajectory that we expect in terms of their developmental skills. So in essence, when we talk about child development, we refer to, as you said, brain growth. As our brain grows and matures and develops, which is most rapid in the first 2 years of life, we see that infants start to pick up skills and they move on to refining those skills as they get older. Mm-hmm. So if I give you an example, it's, you know, a baby lying on his back, he starts to kick his legs, reach out with his hands, eventually sit up, eventually get to crawling, and then they walk, and then they start to get their balance and they go upstairs. Right. So, you know,
different stages.
It's different stages of the developmental skills. So,
but with new parents, okay, young parents, first child,
yeah,
will they be able to tell, you know, one stage moving to the other?
Yeah, so we try and give guidelines to parents, and you know, with in Malaysia we have a child health record book. This has been produced by the Ministry of Health, and actually this is a great resource because at various stages, so for example at 6 weeks, at 3 months, they've listed down things that we should expect our babies to do. Right. Looking at the different areas of development such as motor skills, language skills, social skills, self-care skills, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that parents have a checklist, they can go through the checklist, and if their kids are not meeting those milestones, they can then seek help.
Right, so it's essential for parents to work with those checklists and to take it off at every stage. Yeah. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, what are the warning signs when we come across developmental disorders?
You know, I'm going to give the example of autism only because it's something that's in the news a lot nowadays. And when you talk about child development, that's the first thing people refer to. For example, in children with autism, there can be warning signs as early as 12 months old. For example, if a child has poor eye contact, is not pointing at things, is not starting to babble and imitate some of the noises that you make and actions that you make. These are all little warning signs that something is not right in their development. It may be more specifically autism or some other developmental issues such as a language delay or so. Right.
Yeah. This is a very interesting question that's asked a lot. Why are we having these problems now? My usual answer to this, not being a medical practitioner, is that we know more today than we did before. Yes. Today, what we knew as a stupid kid back then, we know is ADD or ADHD. So do you think it's that, or is it gravitating towards something else?
I think definitely there's a lot more knowledge about this, and you gave a good example. What was someone who was called lazy and stupid may have attention issues or mild learning difficulties or even something like dyslexia. We know more about it. Also because there is research that shows if we intervene early enough, we reduce some of the long-term issues that may come about. For example, if you take autism as an example, or even a child with just speech and language delay. In the old days, if you were not talking, most people said, oh, wait till he's 5. Right. Now, if you weren't talking at 5, oh, he's going to be mentally retarded. But we know now that with children with speech and language delays, if we intervene early, we actually help them to catch up a bit. They may not be exactly like another child who's 5 years old, but they have enough to move on functionally. So I think we believe that, you know, some of this so-called increases is just that we know more about it and people are more aware about it.
Now, with developmental skills or just learning per se, boys and girls, is there discrimination? Say when they go to kindergarten, to creche, or when they join a martial arts school or even swimming, they always say, teachers always say that the girls pick up faster than the boys in the early stages. You know, do we have studies that make this conclusive? So
we know with developmental issues that actually it affects boys more than girls. If you look at things like ADD or ADHD, autism, for a lot of the developmental conditions, it seems to affect boys more than girls. It may have something to do with the balance of the chromosomes. Girls have 2 X's, a boy has an X and a Y, so there's no sort of compensation. But we also need to look at how we teach our kids these days. If you look at classrooms, the way classes are held, even sports nowadays, there's this need for kids to stay still, listen for prolonged periods. Now, we know generally boys are more physical than girls, but there are also some girls who are more physical than the types who just sit, listen and talk.
Right. So, but I guess the world's also changed. Everything's moving at light speed now. You know, you watch videos are 30 seconds long. And do you think this is also in some way affecting simple things like kids sitting still for a few minutes?
Definitely. And that's one of my biggest things now, is that I think the screen is definitely resulting in an increased incidence of issues with attention and language especially. And it's been shown, studies have shown that prolonged screen time is associated with these developmental issues as well. The other thing we have to remember is parents say, well, 20 years ago, you watched TV and you turned out okay. If we look even at educational programs like Sesame Street, the frames change so much faster now. It's said that Sesame Street today is 27 times faster than Sesame Street in the 80s. So, you know, that will definitely affect a growing brain in terms of what they expect, in terms of what they see.
But here's the other thing, you know, with the dawn of tablets and technology, apparently a study said that they put a box of tablets in a very tribal area in Africa, and they just gave it to kids, and within minutes kids figured out how to use it. Now that they also went on to say that how, you know, easy it is for kids to learn. Now, what would you say with regards to this?
If you give a child anything to learn, they learn it much faster than an adult does, and that's because the first 5 years of life is when maximal brain development takes place, you know, from the forming of the, if you look down to neuroanatomy, in the forming of the neuronal branches, the myelination and the formation of neurons and the brain. So if you challenge them, I mean, you just give a small child a box, they can turn it into a variety of different things, you know. So if kids are given opportunities to learn, they will learn. Yes, they will learn you know, things like the tablet, maybe they find it more interesting than, say, a toy, but that depends how we as adults present it. There's also a study that showed that actually if a parent holds a book and reads a book and makes it look exciting, just as exciting as when they sit and look at the different changing colors of their phone and start laughing at the phone, that child will also find the book interesting. So children also look and see what's around them and what other people find interesting as well.
I mean, it's great to know that back in the day, you know, we used to have our parents sit down and read stories to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, but today, you know, our excuse would be, where do I find the time, you know, to do this?
You have the time to look at your 5 different screens, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, a lot more to discuss with regards to this child developmental issues. When we come back, hopefully we'll talk a little bit about rare diseases, how that all works into child developmental issues right here on Medical Today. Stay with us. We'll take a short break.
Gain insights from the people with the capacity to translate vision into reality. Interviews with corporate leaders at 8:30 p.m. Monday, only on BNC.
Brings you the latest in current affairs, lifestyle and entertainment, as well as one-on-one discussions with fascinating personalities. Only on Onama News Channel.
Listen to views of industry captains. Analyze and examine trends and projections. Gain market insights from subject matter experts. Biz Talk every Friday, only on BNC.
Hello and welcome back to Medical Today. I'm Gerard Ratnam. We're currently discussing child developmental issues, and we have with us a pediatrician from Ramsay, Sime, Darby Healthcare, Dr. Rajani Sarvanandan. She's a consultant, general and developmental pediatrician, to be exacting. Thank you very much for staying with us. Well, we were talking about some very interesting things with regards to developmental issues and children. Now let's talk about statistics. Coming from a private facility, what statistics do you have with regards to child developmental issues within this region and also in Malaysia?
Sadly, in Malaysia, we don't have exact statistics in terms of prevalence and...
We started with the left foot there. Yeah.
Okay. in the sense that, you know, we don't have exact statistics.
New Malaysia is going to change those things, I hope.
So,
Yeah,
and we hope that the prevalent studies that have been planned will continue, because there are a few in the pipeline.
Right.
But, you know, even around the region, good prevalence studies is actually very low. One of the studies that did mirror statistics from overseas is when they did a study looking at screening children for possible autism spectrum, where we used a questionnaire that was translated into Bahasa Malaysia and looked at 18-month-old babies. And we did find that our incidences were very similar to overseas. Regardless, I think if you speak to people around, with increased awareness, we are seeing a greater number of children being identified to have problems. And if you speak to school teachers, they will tell you that, yes, in every classroom, they may, you know, of say 40 children, they definitely have 2 or 3 children who have issues that are affecting learning, whether it's behavior or actual learning issues as well.
It's interesting you talk about a spectrum, you know, you talk about autism, then maybe that goes down the line, there's Asperger's, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But there's also a very small number of people that come under a rare disease group.
Yeah.
Now, does it fall under your purview?
So I see a number of children who may have a variety of chronic illnesses. So some who have syndromes that many people have never heard of. We also see, as child development specialists, we also see children who may have chronic health issues that result in developmental issues. A common example being children with congenital heart problems. So they're born with abnormal hearts, they have to go through different operations, they have issues that affect their stamina and tolerance for exercise. And because of the medical condition, plus how we then treat them, because we tend to then put them in cotton wool and wrap them, prevent them from exploring, playing with things that are deemed to be dirty and may cause infection, we are also doing harm. So it's trying to find that fine balance, really. Yeah.
Now, speaking of balance, I guess for us, the layperson, the thing here would be for us to know when to come and see you. When should parents come to visit you, or where should they go if they're concerned about their child?
Okay. So I advocate for parents to really get to know what normal developmental milestones are, and really, you know, use the internet. There's so many websites now telling you at different stages of at different ages what they should be doing in terms of their development.
Right. You know, usually they used to say, you know, with concerns about your children or yourself, go to your primary healthcare provider first.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would go to your primary healthcare provider first, but as a patient or somebody who's seeking medical advice, go with some evidence. Look, this website says my child needs to be doing this, or this child health record book says my child needs to be doing this, but they're not meeting these criteria. What do I do? Now, granted, most primary medical practitioners don't know a lot about child development, but hopefully they then take your query seriously and may direct you to people. We now have a lot of allied health professionals in Malaysia, speech therapists, occupational therapists, and my work involves working with them.
But intervention is also
very important. So it doesn't mean that you must see a developmental pediatrician, because there are not many of us. It's a new sort of subspecialty in Malaysia, but we hope that many medical practitioners know that they can refer on to allied health professionals for intervention.
Right. So within your facility, who ascertains that a child should come see you?
To be honest, a lot of times my referrals come from parents, other pediatricians, and school teachers, preschool teachers especially. And at our center, we work as a team. So I work with a team of psychologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists. And so sometimes referrals, if there is a bit of a wait to see me, they might see one of these therapists first, get a hearing test done if it's a child with speech and language delay. So really, I don't work solo. We work as a team, and we have team meetings every month where we go through new referrals and work through them.
So you have to run a gamut of tests to make sure you have the right information before you can make a call at something or on something. How long will these tests usually take?
So sometimes if it's very clear cut, an example would be a child who may have a syndrome. If they come in and it's obvious that they have issues, that they have symptoms to suggest that it's a particular syndrome, if I'm very clear about the symptoms, such as Down syndrome or other particular syndromes, I may break that news to the parents. So it might be the first appointment, or it may mean them having to go to see different doctors, therapists, before I collate all the information and come up with a diagnosis. But at the end of each session, we have a plan. Even if we don't have a final diagnosis, we work on what the problems are, guide parents on what they can do, because parents are the best therapists. And a lot of my work is about working with parents on what they can do.
But here's the other thing, the flip side to what you're saying, that there's always second opinions. Some say are like a pain in the posterior. So you diagnose, you come up with a plan, an action plan for parents, and then there's a second opinion that comes in. Do you have things like this happening which impedes your practice?
Yes. The good thing is, I think nowadays a lot of parents come having already read about it or heard about it and probably discussing it with other doctors before they come to see me. So sometimes I often do see this where one parent has started to accept. So it's about accepting the diagnosis first, and they may start to want to do things, but the other parent hasn't accepted it. And I've had parents who storm out. I always say to parents, it doesn't matter to me whether you believe what I say. What's important is if you see there's an issue with your child, that you get the right help for your child. The label is not so important, and if you don't want that label, fine, but you know there is a problem. It's like saying, okay, you have a disease, but you're not coming to terms with that disease, but you treat the symptoms. To some extent, it's a bit like that. And then it's an ongoing process where get them to come back. There's a little bit of communication. They can access me through email or, through my staff. And we hope that way we don't have many who go away not doing anything about it.
I guess then the million-dollar question for all of us who have encountered problems or who are encountering problems with our kids is to find out if intervention, or when would be time for good intervention, or will my child be normal upon intervention?
So intervention should start as early as possible. And how early? As soon as you find out there's a problem, we start to deal with it. And it's been shown that a lot of research has shown that if parents are actively involved in intervention, whatever it is that we are intervening in, that child has a better chance of reaching their full potential. A lot of times I get asked, will my child be normal? What is normal? For me, what's important is, can that child improve enough to be able to function? And our aim in the long term is that they function within the social setting that they are in. So if it's in a preschool, how do we improve them so that they can function in preschool? But most importantly, are they functioning as a member of the family first?
What would be your parting advice to those of us watching this
I think
program?
what's important is, if you are worried about any aspect of your child's development, behavior or learning, speak to people around you in terms of, people who are involved in your child's care. Try and gather as much information. Seek professional help. If you're not sure whether your primary care doctor is able to answer your queries, there are psychologists around as well. Or if you feel you want to approach an allied health professional before seeing a doctor, go ahead. Seek help early, intervene early.
If my mother were here, she'd be asking the question, is my child normal? And that's with reference to me. I would like to thank Dr. Rajni Sarvanandan, Consultant General and Developmental Pediatrician from Ramsay, Sime, Darby Healthcare. Thank you very much for joining us right here on Medical Today. We'll be back just after a break. Thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you.
Brings you the latest in current affairs, lifestyle and entertainment, as well as one-on-one discussions with fascinating personalities. Only on Onama News Channel.
Hello and welcome back to the final segment of Medical Today. I'm Gerard Ratnam, and to close today's show, we're going to talk about asthma/COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, joining me in the studio is Dr. Goh Kee Sun, a consultant respiratory physician at Ramsay Sime Darby Healthcare. He's taken his time off to be with us today to give us some information about asthma and COPD. Now, to get into conversation straight away, let's define asthma and COPD first.
Well, asthma and COPD are basically essentially a disease of the airway. They are basically inflammation of the airway, and this basically define both the asthma and COPD. So in asthma, basically when we speak about asthma, it's always associated with what we call a reversible airway limitation. The airway is narrowed, but it comes and goes. So that's why we term it as reversible. Mm-hmm. In a COPD, otherwise, the airway limitation are not fully reversible, where it can partly or fully obstructed. So in that respect, in asthma, it leads to typical symptoms like shortness of breath, chest tightness, cough, and wheezing, in which, because it's reversible, it comes and goes. Mm-hmm. For example, in conditions where there's exposure to allergics, the airway will become narrowed. Mm-hmm. It leads to all these symptoms. And then, if the allergens go away, or if the patient receives treatment, it goes back to normal. So this characterizes asthma. Whereas in COPD, because of the mainly irreversible or partly reversible airflow limitation, so their symptom is not like asthma. They comes and tends to be more progressive. Mm-hmm. So, and the important important cause for this COPD is usually smoking. So it's always due to this continuous exposure to this irritant, in particular smoking.
Right.
Most of
So
the
now
time.
that you mentioned smoking, saying if someone's smoking, develops COPD, and he gives up smoking straight away, will that reverse whatever problems the person has?
It will at least stop the progression.
And stop progression.
Yes. So because in COPD, one important aspect that we always that form part of the COPD definition is that it's a progressive disease. But if we stop smoking, it can contribute to at least reduce the progression of the disease.
Right.
Whether it reverses, usually it doesn't, but it can stop the progression.
Well, now let's talk about the similarities and the differences between COPD and asthma. How do we tell if we're having COPD or asthma? Can we tell by the symptoms?
Yes. The similarity is that they both have the same symptom essentially. So as I mentioned, it's always about wheezing. They have shortness of breath, cough, persistent cough, and they can worsen with smokes, in particular COPD. Asthma usually occurs during the childhood, but with smoking, it tends to recur during the adolescent or adulthood. So that's the similarity. As well, they are both inflammation of the airway.
Right.
So that's how they are both similar. But the important difference is that their causes are different. So asthma is like caused by more like genetically predisposed. So that's why it tends to occur during the childhood, and usually they tend to go off after they reach puberty, like the age of 14, 16 years old. Whereas COPD, because it's caused by mainly smokes, they tend to occur in the adulthood, mostly in people more than 40 years old.
Right. So those who develop COPD usually are in their 40s and they've been smoking for a long while.
Yes, correct.
Does it matter how much you smoke? Does that make a difference?
Yep. For us, we have a calculation for that. So basically, we define a significant smoker as those who smoke more than 30 packs years, meaning we take the number of cigarettes they smoke per day, divide 20, meaning we assume that each pack of cigarette smoke contains 20 cigarettes.
Yeah.
And then times the year they smokes. That's how we come to definition, the term pack years. Generally, if they smoke more than 20 or 30 pack years of smokes, usually that's quite a significant number to contribute to their COPD.
Right. Now, with COPD and asthma, which is very debilitating, it's always chronic asthma, especially makes people. It gives people problems in leading their daily lives. Now, with asthma, I think we've learned a lot about asthma, and we also learned a lot of half-truths and myths about asthma. But before we go there, let's talk about tests for both COPD and asthma. What kind of tests will you conduct at your facility when one comes in to check if he has COPD and asthma?
We have an item or device we call spirometry. This is basically the test that we use to measure how good they blow. It's a small device where nowadays it is available in most of the clinics and essentially in all hospitals. So this device has been developed into a small portable sort of thing.
It used to be a bigger device. And
yes,
yeah,
correct. So now it's quite commercialized. So it can be even connect to a computer and to facilitates all the measurements, and essentially it comes up with a value that help us to define both asthma and COPD. So basically, this device is connected to a tube, and at the end of the tube there's a mouthpiece, and the patient is asked to blow into the mouthpiece, and essentially it will measure the velocity, how fast they blow during the initial phase, and how much they can blow out the air.
So capacity
that
going
will
into
measure the total capacity. So with this, in asthma and COPD, usually the airflow limitation can be measured based on the value, especially if it's abnormal. So if it's normal, then usually it rule out this condition. However, based on our assessment with the clinical and so on, so usually this will provide us clue on whether to define totally as either asthma or COPD, or they are not.
Right. I mean, just to digress a little, to just move out of what we're talking a little. For some people, they climb 2 flights of stairs and they're winded. They take short breaths already, and they start to worry. Oh, you know, am I developing asthma, or am I having some sort of a lung problem? Is this telling of lung problems?
Yes, it can be. So in particular, COPD, as it is progressive, sometimes their main complaint is not wheezing or cough. Sometimes it's a progressive breathlessness, especially when they exercise or even walking a short distance. So in this group of people, we do advise them to seek early advice and to get the test done. So especially in particular for those smokers. Whereas in asthma, it's more if they complain of wheezing, or if there's a persistent cough which does not relieve with multiple, let's say, cough syrup. So in that case, we usually advise them to seek treatment to see whether it's asthma as well. So this is how we advise people on how to detect their symptom early.
Right. So detection aside, let's talk about treatment now. How do you treat both these problems, COPD and also asthma? Let's talk about asthma first, because a lot of people say that asthma is curable.
Well, just like allergics, it's not exactly curable, but you can control and you can treat it. So same like COPD. So most of the time we divide, basically we can divide the treatment into whether it come into an emergency phase or during a stable phase. So both of them can have a phase what we call exacerbation.
Right.
Meaning
it starts to become worsen.
Yes, correct. So that's when they usually come to hospital to seek treatment, because they get very breathless, especially when they are not on stable treatment. So their breathlessness can be so severe that it can cause them to collapse. When they come to hospital, the first medication usually we give what we call nebulizer. Where we give the put the medication into the
into a machine, and you inhale it. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So we mix it into a machine, and then this machine will give out the vapor gas, and then the patient will be able to inhale the gas.
So this opens up the airways.
And this opens up the airway. Yes, correct. And the second treatment usually we give is the steroid. So it's either is a tablet form or intravenously.
Right. See, the problem with this now, when you say steroid to a patient, some patients, you know, they don't like taking medication. They say steroid's really bad for you. You shouldn't, you know, that's why I don't want to take the treatment. Do you get patients telling you that?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for patients to have some worry with regards to steroid use. But I always tell them that steroid treatment is only, it can only lead to side effect if they're taking the medication orally for a long time. So usually in acute asthmatic attack, we give for a short duration, at most usually 5 to 7 days. So this usually won't cause any problem or harmful effects.
Right.
So this is actually the most important, apart from the bronchodilator, the most important part of treatment, because inflammation during that time will be intense, and we want to control that. So apart from that, usually they are precipitated by something, for example, infection. So if there are suggestions that they have an infection of the lung from the X-ray or the blood test, so we will start with antibiotics as well.
Now, are there preventive measures that you can walk us through with regards to both asthma and COPD? Of course, COPD is easy, lah.
Yeah, correct.
Don't smoke.
Yeah, correct. So the most important thing for COPD is you don't smoke, right? You stop smoking.
But secondhand smoke does secondhand smoke cause COPD?
Yes, it's not uncommon as well. So there are, for example, ladies where the husband smoke at home, and then they got a secondhand smoke and they have COPD. So, well, you just have to ask them to avoid being exposed to these smokers. And as for those smokers, sometimes we do recognize that it is sometimes difficult, and we have a certain program, especially in the hospital, where we can facilitate them to cease the smoking.
Right. Now, a very interesting question came in, and this talks about pets, having pets in the house. And if you have asthma problems, especially if your kids, if they have asthma problems, is it advisable to keep pets, or can we keep pets?
There are some people who are allergic to pet's fur, cats or dogs. So
it depends on what the allergies
correct.
are, basically.
So for these people who are have allergies to this fur, then we do advise not to keep pets at home. So there are different kind of people who has allergies to different type of allergens, cold, dust, and really depends on what kind of allergy they have.
Right.
So that's why it's also important for us to look into their occupation circumstances. If they have allergies to cold and they are always predisposed to air conditioning, then we do advise them to, let's say, change the place or work in a better environment where they are less predisposed.
We've got about 30 seconds left. What would be your parting tip for those of us viewing this program? As a specialist in asthma and COPD, what would be your tip to us or your advice?
Well, for those asthma, if you have a persistent cough or do you have a wheezing, please do not hesitate to seek opinion or advice from the doctor, because, as I said, this is a treatable condition. If you don't seek treatment early, the consequences might be quite dire or can be quite bad. Not only from the attack from asthma, but in long term, if your airway stays inflamed, it may lead to a condition, something like COPD. The airway might get an irreversible scarring. So that's number one. For the COPD, of course, you really have to stop smoking. There's no other choice. So we always tell people it's not curable, but if you can just seek advice or treatment early, and you avoid all this allergy and smoking, then this condition will lead to a better healthcare or even life.
Right. With that, we'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Goh. It was a pleasure having you in the studios. We'd also like to thank the rest of the doctors and the subject matter experts who appeared on today's show. We had Vanessa Daniels from Pharmaniaga Berhad. We had Dr. Rajani Sarvanandan from Sime Darby or Ramsay Sime Darby Healthcare. And also not forgetting Dr. Goh Ki-san, who just gave us some information about COPD and asthma. As always, do a lot of reading up if you do have a problem, and check with your primary healthcare provider. Now, we're giving out vitamins, so if you want a bottle of vitamins for yourselves, please send us an email. Send it to ask@medicaltoday.my. That's ask@medicaltoday.my. Send us an email, say you want a bottle of multivitamins, and Pharmaniaga will be more than happy to furnish you with that bottle. Of course, we'll write back to you or call you back, so don't worry about anything. You will definitely, if you have already sent us a note or an email, we have already sorted you out. On that note, I'm Gerard Ratnam signing off for this week's episode of Medical Today. We'd also like to once again thank Dr. Goki San for joining us. Thank you very much, Doctor. You have a great weekend and have a great week ahead.